Let's just start from the top. Why do you support?
It's not even support of one person so much as the support of many of the policies or actions that he put in place. I believe in a rule of law. I believe in personal accountability. And for the things that fall under those categories, I agree with. I don't support any politician, any athlete, any movie star, anybody like that, put them on a pedestal. They're just another person.
Okay, so rule of law. What do you mean by rule of law?
We're a country of laws. So those
Okay.
people that follow the laws and those that don't. And if you don't follow the laws, then there's consequences for it. Whether it's a speeding ticket for speeding or being deported for entering the country without proper documentation or through a legal port of entry.
So do you think Democrats don't believe in laws?
Yeah, that's not what I said. Don't be
No, but
disingenuous with it.
I'm asking for clarity because you say that he believes in the rule of law. So the implication is that, or that platform is
I said that's what
support
I believe in.
the support
and I
of the
support
rule
the
of
things
law.
that he follows that.
You think that Trump follows the rule of law?
In many cases, like any president and every president throughout the history of our country, he pushes the boundaries until the checks and balances of the legal system puts them in place.
Okay,
Every
so do you
single
think that
country,
do you think
every
that he
single
does
president in the
that?
country has done that.
But do you think that that he follows the law better than the alternative? That the Democrat that because that's what I've said. Like you led with like you because you believe in the rule of law, right?
Correct.
And so that's why you support the Trump's platform, right?
I support many of the things that he has done.
Okay, how does
Not
the things he
everything
does
has done.
support the rule of law? Like, what does that got to do with things?
Well,
Like,
if
how
you're
are the,
getting
like how
on,
is the Republican platform pro rule of law in a way that the Democrat platform is not? I guess is what I'm asking. That's the point, because that was the point you made. So what are they doing that the Democrats aren't doing that supports the rule of law?
well, if you're talking about what's prevalent today,
I'm
then
talking
in
about what you
why?
mean. I'm talking about what you say. You say you support that
Okay, well
because of
then
the rule of
we'll
law.
bring
So
it to
how are
immigration right
they?
now. It's
Well, how are they supporting the rule of law in a way that aligns with your beliefs? Is what I'm asking.
okay. Then we'll bring it back to immigration because that's a hot topic for today, right? So we had virtually open borders for a long time.
What does that mean?
There was a ton of illegal immigration with virtually no consequence.
How many immigrants came in?
I don't have the numbers pulled up in front of
Well,
me.
but how many?
If
I mean,
you're
like,
wanting, if you're
well,
wanting somebody I'll be honest with you, man. If you're wanting somebody that has studied this and memorized every stat and statistic there is, I'm not going to be the person that you
well,
want to talk to.
I just want to know why you believe what you believe. That's it. I want to know why you believe it because and that's the real thing is that like when you say these
Because
things like okay, you say Trump
okay,
supports.
let me ask you a question.
Well,
Let me ask you a question
okay,
because
sure.
we'll bring up a whole bunch of different stuff. Say somebody
Well,
robbed the
start
bank.
with one thing. Let's start with the one
Okay,
thing. Let's go back
we
to the
are.
original
It's
thing.
coming full circle. It's going to come full circle. Okay.
Well,
So
I guess
say,
okay.
give me a chance here.
Go for it. Go for it.
Say somebody robbed the bank.
Okay.
And a week later felt guilty about robbing a bank and voluntarily turned the money back in. Should the police arrest that person for still robbing a bank?
Well, sure, but what does that have to
Okay,
do with anything?
so if somebody entered the country illegally and then goes to get documentation after the fact, that's a backpedal or feeling guilty on what they've
Well,
already
not
done.
exactly.
Should
Not
they not
exactly.
still be arrested?
It depends on the circumstances of that. First off,
There is no
that
such. They
well,
made
hold
a
on. Let me correct you.
choice
Let me correct you
to
there.
enter the country
Let me
without proper
correct. Let me
documentation or
correct
through a
you.
legal port of entry.
Let me correct you on that point because that's an incorrect assumption. The correct international law is that asylum seekers, refugees, political asylum seekers, and refugees from war zones, political refugees, just have to present themselves to an official. How they got there does not matter. They don't have to. There's no particular ritual. As far as for getting across, there's no particular anything. That is international law. They just have to get to an official. And in fact, that's just the law. And so like a lot of these people that we were talking about earlier, and again, I'm not trying to change. I'm just like saying that they're just like a point of fact. That's a factual inaccuracy. And like a lot of these people, I was saying
So
like they were
you're
doing
telling
that.
me every single illegal immigrant that we have in the country is simply seeking asylum.
No.
They've been here. There's been people that's lived here for 30
Okay,
years,
no, I
haven't
mean,
gotten
but
the proper
that's not the point.
documentation that
Like
they
some
were
of
just
these
seeking
people,
asylum. So
some of these people.
it's a point when it helps
No.
your argument, but it's not a point when it's against your argument.
Well, no, but those
That's
people
a
are being
disingenuous,
targeted and
not good
taken.
faith conversation.
This is a good faith conversation because, but you're like what you're doing right there is you're trying to reduce. Oh well, because some people aren't like that. You're completely like disregarding that entire category of people.
No, I wasn't talking about that category of people to begin with.
But those are the people that are being like removed.
No, a lot of
Yes.
people are being removed. The people that are here that didn't enter the country legally are being removed.
But a
That's the
lot of
same.
people.
You agreed to it. You agreed to it when it was a bank robber, but for some reason, immigration is different. Why?
That's a false equivalence. First off.
Is it breaking a crime? Is
Okay.
committing a crime, breaking a law?
Okay, I'll
Yes,
tell you.
then
Let's
it's
put it
not a
this way.
false
Let's put this
equivalency.
way. Okay, that it's not that. What I'm trying to say is that what you're saying is not logically valid. Okay, because you're kind of picking one thing that's not the same. First off, like robbing a bank is a felony anywhere. Okay, crossing the border without documentation is a misdemeanor.
Unless they've been caught and deported before and came back.
Unless, but you're tacking all these on top of that. Okay, that like you're like unwilling to examine
Okay.
the case where, but hold on, you're unwilling
Then-
to examine the position where somebody comes in legally and is now being by the system, and you're going to assume that everybody being by the system deserves to be by the system.
That's not what I
that's your
said at all.
stance. But that's your stance.
That's not what his stance is. That's not what I said.
Okay, so
People who come here legally
okay.
are fine. The
Okay,
people
well,
who
but now
don't
in
come
that
here legally
case,
are not.
now there's many people that are currently being targeted by, because like, well, I'm not trying to convince you of anything, all right, but Obama, they always say Obama deported 3 million people, right? He was the
Yeah.
deporter in chief. He had deported more people than ever, blah, 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 right? That was
Yeah.
over 8 years, okay? Now, when he was done, there was about 11 million illegal immigrants in the country. Now, during Biden's time, he did accept some people through this program, this asylum program. It got up to 13.1 million, right? Under Biden. Now, Trump is trying to deport 1 million a year. Now, that is a significantly larger population of people, right? Now, Obama was working his ass off, right, and pushing the line with violating rights to get to 3 million over 8 years. Trump's people are trying to do 1 million every year, and that means that they're running out of bad hombres and lawbreakers, and they're going after people that came in here legally using the legally defined process by changing the process on them. They're going after people that were like veterans that served in the Iraq War, right? They're finding pretexts to revoke their status just to have somebody to go out. Like people that like they basically fought on our side in the Iraq War. So Iraq said, "Fuck you," and their lives are dirt in Iraq, right? Because they fought against Saddam for us. So when they came here, we said, "You guys could live here." Okay, great. You're a veteran. We honor you. You helped us win this war. We love you. And now all of a sudden we're like, "Well, you got a speeding ticket, dude. You go back to Iraq." And that is happening to people. All right. And like these other people, the asylum seekers, they're coming in from countries that we've been for generations. Guatemala, right? We've been propping up criminal organizations running these countries, Republican and Democrat both, back and forth for generations. That's where the term banana republic comes from, right? You know where that comes from, banana republics? Right? We did that. And so they're fleeing those conditions and they come here. And so they get into the country. They register with this app that Biden had set up, right, on the phone. And it set them up with a court date. It gave all the documentation, who they are. They went and they registered. They said, okay, you're going to show up for your court date, and then we're going to process you and move to the next stage of the process. Okay, it takes time because they're overloaded. These people
Why
are
are they
showing
overloaded?
up
Just out of
because there's so
curiosity.
many people, and because we use it for football. Because they
So
put
they're
175 billion into
overloaded.
ICE agents, and they don't put shit.
They're overloaded because people who come into the country illegally put extra strain on that system.
It's the job to handle it. Okay, the system should be built to. There's a lot of things to fix on it.
There's a lot of
the fix
should-be's there,
action,
too.
the fix action isn't just scaring up 1 million to deport, but with people in masks. You know what I mean? The fix action is, there's several ways to look at fixing it, but the thing is, like, they were showing up for their appointments, and when they show up for the appointments, the federal attorney says, hey, this guy, and they throw it out without even looking at the evidence. And we've seen that happen over and over and over and over again. So the people that are coming legally are getting deported. The people that are following the process are getting deported. The people that are coming with specific protection from the government are being deported and sent back to places where they're going to be killed. I mean,
See, all the different things that I've read defaults that. So like even pulling up Google search, it'll say that that's not the case, that there's breaks in the documentation and therefore they're illegal, right? So if you have someone here on a student visa and that student visa lapse and they quit college, whatever the case is, and start working.
So you think if
they're no
somebody comes
longer
on a student
legal
visa
at that point.
and then they start a business, that they should be deported?
If they quit their college and start a business,
Without
then
getting
they
the
didn't
visa
follow
deported?
the law for it, and there's consequences for that.
Okay, so
right?
if they do that,
No
if they
different than the
come to this
consequences
country
that
on a
if I
student
get-
visa, if they come to this country on a student visa, and while they're on a student visa, they start working and they start a company, what do you think the punishment should be for that person?
If they didn't follow the rules, whatever
Mm-hmm.
the preordained consequences for breaking those laws is, right?
Okay.
In the case of immigration, it's deportation.
Okay, so
right?
now if they get deported in that fashion, can they come back? You think they should be able to come back?
There's laws in place that allow that. There's a system in place that allows that.
Okay, because like
For
Elon
them
Musk did
for
that.
them to turn around. Exactly. And
And
had
Elon Musk didn't have a
been
process.
caught
He
by
didn't
the
get kicked out.
cops,
There was
I would have-
nobody questioned what he
had
did.
Elon Musk been caught by the cops when he wasn't here legally, I would have 100% supported his deportation back to Canada.
But then he got his legal status under false pretenses, which is a breaking the law.
Okay.
So if somebody robs a bank and then you don't find out about it until like 10 years later, are they still liable?
There's a statute of limitations for different crimes, right?
So what's
your
the
answer to
statute
that,
of limitations
if
for crossing the border?
You tell me. What is it legally in our system?
I don't know.
Okay, well, I don't either. They may
Well, I
not
mean,
have a
that's the thing,
statute
Elon Musk,
of
because like a lot of these
limitations
people have been here
for
20
somebody illegally
years.
because they're not a citizen and therefore not granted the same rights as a citizen.
Well, they are. I mean, they don't have all the privileges, but the
The
Constitution,
Constitution was written for citizens of the country. The
Well,
Constitution
not
does not
exactly.
apply to somebody in Britain, does not apply to somebody in Germany,
It
does
applies
not apply to
to
somebody in Russia.
It applies to whoever.
U.S. citizens.
It is no, it does not apply just to U.S. citizens. It applies to whoever whoever is within the jurisdiction of the law of the United States. So yeah, it doesn't apply to British people in Britain. It does apply to British people in the United States, and it applies to immigrants in the United States, and it applies to refugees in the United States, and it applies to undocumented people in the United States. Everybody in the United States within the jurisdiction of the United States' laws is given given equal protection of those laws, except for people who have been found guilty of a crime and convicted.
Right. The context of it is for legal framework, right?
No, the context of it is for well, yeah, this is all legal framework.
If a British person comes here on vacation and robs somebody, assaults somebody, whatever the case is, they can get deported back to their country or held legally liable here.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
just like a citizen. But if a British person comes here and they're accused of a crime, we cannot summarily convict them without the same trial by their peers, by evidence that we would give an American citizen. We cannot convict them of that crime.
If they sign voluntary paperwork, they can, which is something that Bill Clinton put into place.
That's not a conviction, though. That's a
No. They can, if they're arrested for whatever reason with immigration, and they can voluntarily sign a piece of paper to be deported without going through the due process system.
Well, no, the thing that I'm saying is that they if someone is in our country, they cannot be found guilty of a crime without being given the right to due process.
Right. So if they are arrested and they sign a document that says, I don't want to fight this, just send me back to my country, then it's not an illegal process.
Well, yeah, if they sign it, if they say, yeah, send me back, that's true.
That's the vast majority of what's been happening with that. Now,
oh, you mean like people get seized by ICE and thrown in a jail cell for weeks on end? And given no access to resources and nothing but a fucking public defender that doesn't give a shit. They say, would you want to stay here for the next 10 years or go back home? And they sign a paper.
I mean, do you think your treatment would be different if you entered Mexico illegally?
I don't care. This isn't Mexico.
Oh,
do you want to be Mexico?
So what's good for me is not good for
me.
Well,
yeah, because we're the United States of America. We have a constitution of laws. We're not trying to be Mexico.
Yeah, so
if you want to look at another country, let's look at a country that's doing better than us. Let's try to be Canada. Let's try to be like Sweden. You know what I mean? If we're gonna
you enter Canada without going through a proper illegal port of entry or with undocumentation.
They don't care. They don't care. You're in the country. They don't care. It's an open border between us. We can just walk right through the motherfucker.
So right after Trump was elected president, Canadian people getting on there saying, no, you can't come through here without doing it the legal way. That was them not caring.
I mean, like, until like this bullshit, maybe, like, it's been an open border for, just like the Mexican border was open for decades. And people just would come in and go to work and then go home. And then they decided to just like make it a political point. So they started like trying to treat people from Mexico like cockroaches or something. But I mean, I'm all for open borders. Like, I mean, aside from all this conversation, I'm 100% behind open borders. I don't give a f. You can come here, you can work, do whatever you want. There's no downside to it.
I'm old enough that I can remember Bill Clinton having the same speeches and press conferences that Donald Trump will have about immigration. And
I don't care about Bill Clinton. Fuck Bill Clinton. I don't care about him. Bill Clinton signed NAFTA, which kind of f***ed me.
So in other words, you're saying that the left is going to run so far left, and you're just always okay with that, regardless.
No, I don't. I don't let the left. I don't let the left tell me what to think. I don't let the
So
left
what are
tell me
your
what I should
boundaries
feel
then?
about things. I look
You
at what's
obviously don't
happening.
care if people are here illegally. What other crimes do you not care if people break?
That is false logic. That has nothing. Jesus Christ, man. Okay, like here's something
It's
for
supposed to
you.
be asking you a legitimate question. If you're okay with somebody breaking one law, what other laws are you okay with them breaking?
Smoking weed where it's illegal. I'm okay with them jaywalking. I'm okay with them. I don't know, a million things that like we all do on a regular basis. Speeding. I'm okay with them
Okay,
speeding for the most part.
so when was the last time that you got or saw somebody get arrested for jaywalking?
I don't know. It was mainly a racist thing. It happens a lot in the ghetto. It happens a lot in the hood and in underprivileged places. They use it as a pretext to stop and frisk and then put them into the pipeline. It happens. It's a pretext, just like this shit they're doing with the immigrants.
So now I'm going to admit my ignorance here, but I was pretty sure stop and frisk was pretty primarily a New York thing. Is that wrong?
Well, that is the specific
So
name
that's a
of a specific New
Democrat-run
York
city that
policy.
instituted that
But
policy.
the stop and frisk is sort of a specific name for what they call broken windows policing. Are you familiar with that?
Not that term specifically, but
Okay,
I
so
can
like broken windows
infer what
policing
you're
is like if you're
talking
going through a
about.
neighborhood and you see a house with broken windows, chances are there's a crime or something there, so you pay more attention to them and use that as justification to start harassing that person, right? But anyhow, go back to the point of it, like that people like we are in an age where we get information silos, where like our Google results are tuned to our behavior. You know what I mean? Like if you're primarily looking at right wing sites, then when you search something, Google's going to give you right wing sites. It gives you what you like.
I 100% agree
So earlier when you said that, when you say you Google some shit,
confirmation bias is an issue.
yeah, when you Google some shit that you get that. Now this is like if you look at the old time, I can't remember who said it, but if you only have enough money to buy one newspaper, buy the opposition's.
Correct.
Have you heard that? But we don't do that anymore.
So my father raised me on a very simple premise.
Okay.
That was only a fool follows blindly. A wise man will always question and learn for himself and make his own decisions after having that.
Okay.
Okay, so
But then how
I
do
am
you
not
justify-
a follow blindly with anything that anybody says. I'm going to look at the opposition. That's why I'm not scared to have conversations with people
Yeah.
who don't believe that I do. I grew up in a generation was that
Okay,
was
I don't
normal.
care who you are. I don't care about
disagree
that
with
stuff,
somebody and
though,
then still
but-
drink a beer with them.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the facts themselves. Like that, we got off track here. How do you reconcile that with this idea that the left thinks this, the left thinks that, and treating like if you can recognize that you yourself do not just make all your decisions according to what the right tells you should make. I mean, I assume that you don't just make your decisions based upon what the right tells you should do, right?
No,
am I right?
Correct.
Okay, so that's what we're trying to get to. Is like, why do we believe the things we do? So
My decisions are based on my personal morals and the societal norms that I've grown up with.
Okay, so let's go back to let me get a specific question here then. Why are you opposed to immigrants?
I'm not. I'm opposed to illegal immigration. There is a key difference there. Again, I believe in personal accountability being one of the primary things that everybody should have. Right? No different than if I speed and I get caught by a cop, I don't buck paying the speeding ticket because I own what I did that was against the law. I believe everybody should have that type of mentality.
I mean, I don't understand that. Yeah, I just don't understand that.
You don't
I mean, well, I
understand ownership
I understand
of
that
the actions you choose to make?
Well, no, I understand personal accountability, but I don't understand how that is connected up with the immigration policy that we're seeing.
Because every person makes a decision, right?
So every person that they're doing this to deserves this.
Hold on.
Every
You asked
person
me
they're
a
doing this to
question, let me
deserves this,
answer.
though, right?
You asked me a question.
Sure, go for it.
let me
Answer it. Yeah.
Okay. I believe that every person is responsible for the decisions that they make. It is the only true form of control that we have in our life, is how do I choose to react to the situation that I'm in, what actions I make or what I'm responsible for and what I control.
Okay.
Right? So if I have a situation where we're very close to the country going to shit, right? I can choose to stay in the country and take the actions that will help make it better, or I can choose to flee. And if I choose to flee and enter another country illegally, then I also choose whatever consequences are in place should I get caught by the authorities of that country, right? That's the choice that I make. It's a consequence, risk, reward with every decision that everybody makes.
So you think every single person that ICE is detaining, deporting, whatever, you think every single person they're doing that to deserves it? That they broke the law and that they deserve to be in that position?
I'll say it again. I don't know the details of every single case. I'm saying that if they broke the law and came here illegally, then yes,
Okay, so
they
how
are
many
responsible for
people?
the consequences of those actions.
How many people being punished in this way who did not actually break the law would it take for you to break with Trump on this policy? One person,
I think
if one person who did everything right, followed all the laws, gets deported, is that enough? A
so.
hundred?
So you're saying what? How many people would it take for me to believe that the immigration law needs to stop and we should just
No,
have open
no.
borders?
How many
Because
people would it
what
take
I'm
for
hearing here.
you to say, hey, maybe we should slow down and like not be so aggressively trying to find 1 million people to deport as the primary goal?
I believe you take it on a case by case basis. An
So how many?
officer
So
is
like let's say
more,
let's say
an
50%.
officer.
Let's say 50% of the people have found
I
out they
believe
broke
you.
no law.
Okay, I'll say it again, and maybe you'll let me finish. I believe it's on a case by case basis. Okay, so if an officer breaks the law and oversteps his authority, then that gets reviewed, and if his actions are out of line, then he faces the
Okay,
consequences,
but
and the
I'm
person who is
saying
wrongfully charged
if we I'm
goes
saying
free.
systematically, not a particular. I'm saying like systematic. We can say that like let's say 10% of the people broke no law. 20%,
I'm
30%,
saying with
40%,
everything
50%,
else in
60%.
life, you do not make the rules on the exceptions.
I'm not talking about exceptions. I'm talking about how many
Yes,
of
you
these,
are.
how many of
You are
them would
talking
be,
about the exceptions.
how much of it are am I? Do you know that? Do you know if they're exceptions or not? How many would it take before you would say they're not the exception, that something is wrong systematically with how we're implementing this policy?
For it to not be the exceptions, it would probably have to be over the majority of the cases.
So over
So yeah,
50%.
if it happened 50% of the time, then it's no longer an exception. And of course, that's arbitrary numbers that you're asking to pull out of the air, right?
Well, yeah, I am. Well, I'm saying like if we say 1,000 people get deported, or let's say 1 million people get deported, right? Okay, and if 400,000 of those people actually did everything right,
You're
followed the
telling
law,
400,000 of those people got deported that had student visas, that had viable green cards, and were in
yeah,
no
if they broke
way,
no
form, or
law,
fashion
if they broke
breaking
no
the
law,
law. If they had proper documentation, then I'm going to ask you why the courts are allowing them at that point to be arrested and go
I
through
already
that,
told
right?
you
Because
that. I already told you how
that's
they're
the
doing
check
that.
and balance that goes through this.
I
So
already
like
told you about that though.
all these policies that he's put in place when it comes to immigration are getting challenged by the Democrats and going to court, and the courts are ruling whether or not he can or can't do it. The
Which
same that
ones?
has happened to every president throughout history.
It's funny how, but again, you're missing the how many of these people. Okay, let's say if they did whatever, if they broke no law, if they followed every process, if they had everything there for them to do things legally, how many of them would it take for you to say, slow down, we need to change the way we're doing this, we need to look at how we're enforcing this, start questioning how the actions of the government regarding immigrants, because you're not even
I'm not
questioning their
sure what
actions.
that. I'm not sure what that exact number would be. It would
Well,
have to be again. It would have to be the point where I believed that they were no longer targeting illegal people that were here illegally. That they were just targeting people that they didn't want. Which I wouldn't put US government on either side, blue
So
or
that's a good
red.
thing. If you believed that they were just targeting people who were here legally, they just didn't like, what evidence would it take for you to accept that they were doing that?
Valid documentation,
What is valid documentation?
not current stat, just like a driver's license, bro. You
So
get
you
pulled
want to
over by
see?
a cop with a driver's license, it's
Uh-huh.
a week out of date. You don't have current documentation, he's going to give you a ticket for that. So if you were here legally, but you didn't follow the timeline for your paperwork and it lapsed by 2 days, you're no longer here legally.
I get that, but what I'm saying is I'm saying from me to you, what evidence of them violating people's rights by deporting them when they followed the process and didn't have any crimes would you
I
accept?
answered that question.
Already told you
They
examples
would
where they're
have to
doing
they
that.
would have to prove that they would have valid, legal, proper documentation.
Okay, well, now, how many of those cases would it take for you to start questioning the government's approach towards immigration enforcement?
Probably
One,
a double digit percentage, over 10%.
over 10%?
We'll say that.
Yeah. So let's say, again, like
There's
100,000
there's going
people
to
of the
be
million.
errors. There's going to be errors in any process that's put in place. That's why there's checks and balances to it, right?
Okay. But I
Innocent
mean, what if
people
they're
get
like,
arrested by cops all the time, and they get released once it's gone through the legal system.
but
That
what if we're not
happens.
talking about an error? What if we're talking about a systematic, deliberate change of process in order to
Well, we
just
can talk
classify
about
people?
what
We're
ifs
not
all
talking
day.
about
What can you
one-offs. We're
prove?
not talking about one-offs, and try
I'm not
stop with the
saying
thought
what offs. We're
stoppers.
talking about what ifs. I mean, what can
No,
you
we're
prove?
talking about what's
Right?
happening. I'm talking about what's happening.
Then
See,
send me the documentation of everyone that you can
what?
prove, and I'll look at it.
Okay, everyone like what? Okay, again, what documentation would you accept? Because I'm not going to do this
Show
research if
me,
you don't have
show me the,
documentation to accept. So
show me the name
what
of
I'm
the
saying,
person.
Okay,
Show me
here's
the name of the
the.
person that got arrested and show me their legal documentation that shows that they were
I
still
don't
legal
have
to
their
be in the country.
documentation.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. So you're making assumptions
No,
that
but I don't. No, I'm not
they
making
were
assumptions, but I'm
legal.
relying on primary
Oh,
source
but you don't
reporting.
have.
I'm relying on
You're
primary source
third-party
reporting.
knowledge the same as anybody else, right?
Well, no, I'm relying on
So we
primary
talked
source
earlier
reporting.
about cognitive bias. You're relying on something from a source that you believe in, and
I'm
without double
relying
checking
on
it in
primary source reporting of the individuals themselves and
Oh, so you
of the
believe people
programs
don't lie?
themselves. I'm talking about people who
Hey,
sit in
I've
court and
got
see
dual
this
citizenship
happening.
in every country in the world. You believe me? It just came from my mouth. I'm the source.
Well, no, but you're not a legitimate source. You're not a
Oh,
trustable source or a
okay.
credible source. You don't have press credentials. You don't have any
Okay.
history of journalistic integrity. You're just some dude on the internet. Now, there are, of course, people who go to the court and watch the process because you can go and see it. And they show up and they say, hey, I'm here for my hearing on my refugee status, my asylum seeking status. And the state's attorney says, we move to dismiss this. And the judge says, okay. And they dismiss it. And that person goes from asylum seeker to undocumented immigrant with the click of a gavel.
Okay.
And they followed the process up to that point.
So you're saying what you actually have a problem with then is the fact that the U.S. doesn't grant asylum to every single person in the world.
No, what I'm saying is that
requests
they are violating the law by not even processing the hearing. They are showing up for the hearing to present their evidence to justify their asylum seeking, and they are saying, no, get the out.
Okay.
That is what they're saying. They're saying it because they say that Joe Biden let them in illegally because they use this app to register them, to process them the better, to make it more efficient.
Okay.
Okay, and he
So
used the app to process, and they use the app
there
to
was a
sign up and
shady
process.
means of
So their shit
processing
would be-
them quickly without vetting them properly.
Well,
and-
no,
and
that's
we're
not
okay
that's
with
not what
that.
happened. That's not what happened. They made the app so they could register and get all their information together and everything straight before they showed up at the border. Then they showed up and presented themselves to the border agents, and that's when they got their appointment set. After they were vetted and checked in and said, oh, you are who you say you are. This is the documentation you say you have. All right, we get you put in there. Now, Trump didn't like that because Biden did it, and it was efficient, and it was letting people into the country. So that's why he goes and he says, all these people, when they show up, he just denies 100% of those processes by just canceling the status. And there's
Okay.
people who believed in the country, who trusted us, who believed in the promise of America, who believed in the rule of law, as you say, okay, that are trying to use our laws to better themselves and their families and escape the fucking oppression that we caused through our predatory capitalistic practices. And when they get here and they do all that, we say, fuck you, you're brown, go home.
Credit. Okay, it's not a racial issue, man.
It
Why
is
are
a
you
racial
making it-
issue because
it's
a predatory
not racial
capitalist is because it's coming from fucking Guatemala and the banana republics that we've been exploiting for generations. And that's why these countries are like that, and that's why they suck, because we have been keeping them suck because that benefits us. And now the chickens are coming home to roost, and we don't like it. When they get here, they are good. Oh my God, and that's like, why don't you want the immigrants? Why don't you want the immigrants?
I do.
No, you don't.
Anybody who's come here legally.
But
I
you
don't
just
mind
they
it.
are
I don't
coming
mind it.
legally, and you say
My
I don't want
family-
them.
My family has a background with immigrant too. Like my family came from Italy. My grandfathers came over here
I mean, you're not even
from
white, and
Italy
you're
when he
defending
was
this
just
guy.
a kid. Like immigrants made the country, but there's a legal process to go through with it. Like,
And
you
when
can't
and I'm
just
telling you,
flood the whole country with everybody, man.
I'm telling you that they followed the legal process, and the government said
And the
no.
legal process said no.
The government is breaking the law. The government is breaking international law with this.
So the government doesn't get to decide who does and doesn't get granted asylum?
The government is not even hearing the case.
Who's dismissing it? You said a judge was dismissing it. Is that not part of the judicial?
Okay, so do you understand how
Is part
a
of the
trial
government-
works is like one person shows up with evidence and the other person shows up with evidence. So, okay, the way this works is your immigrant is the plaintiff, right? And they're saying, I am an asylum seeker. So I need to have my case held. And
Yes.
they have their
Did-
case for that prepared.
did
And they
a
go to
judge-
court. And they
did
go to
a
court.
judge dismiss
And then
the case?
the state
Did a judge
Wait, hold on, let me
dismiss
finish.
the case?
Let me finish.
You do
The
this to me
state
the whole time
attorney
we're talking.
says
Did a judge
the
dismiss
state
the case?
let me finish. The state's attorney comes in and he says, I want you to dismiss this case. And the judge dismisses it.
And the judge dismissed the
without
case. Okay.
looking at
Then
the
that is
evidence.
the judicial
Without
branch
looking at the evidence.
saying
Without
no.
looking at the evidence. It's summarily
That's the judicial branch's decision, isn't it?
that's not, oh my God, dude. That's slimy, and you know it. That they're not even following the process that's been set up. They are breaking the law doing this.
So it's
And there's
breaking the law for a judge to dismiss a case.
Yes. In this manner, it is.
Yeah, okay. You should
In this
take that
manner,
up
it
to a
definitely
judge.
is. They're not
then.
even
You should take
examining
that
the
up to a judge
evidence.
then.
They're not even examining the evidence. They're just trying to trump up the numbers. That's 100%. Like, and okay, now if the judge looks at the evidence and says, okay, well, you're not really from Guatemala. There's no evidence that you're going to be fucking killed if you go back home. Okay, yeah, well, you're just blowing this up. You're from, Mexico City, right? Go home. That's one thing. If the other one is, okay, you're seeking asylum, but I don't care. Go. They're not even processing the application. They're not even looking at the evidence, right? They already signed up with information through the app. They processed initially with the Border Patrol to say that their claim met all of the criteria for asylum seeking, right?
How many people got denied through that process?
I don't even know, but there's a couple. I mean, we could look into that, but there's been I've seen at least a couple dozen.
That process?
Huh?
A couple dozen?
I've seen reports like stories of a couple dozen of these, like
millions that entered the country during that time. A couple dozen.
You're just like, what are you even talking about, dude? You're just like, okay, we're talking specifically about these people, okay? We're talking specifically about these people who are following the process, as you say, the rules. They're following the rule of law. They've got all their paperwork together. They've got all their evidence together. They meet the criteria according to the rule of law. When they show up to the hearing that was established according to the rules, the evidence is dismissed without seeing the evidence. They're dismissing the evidence without seeing the evidence. Due process is hearing the evidence. Due process, according to international law, is for the claim to be examined.
That's under arrest for committing a crime, right?
But due process means that the law has a process, that when you have a business with the government, that there is due process that must be followed in order for that interaction with the government to be valid. Okay?
Which is for a judge to make a decision on that case, correct?
After hearing the evidence.
Does it say that specifically within the law? Does it say that specifically in the law? Like a judge can't dismiss a case?
Goodbye. You are not engaging in good faith. You're not engaging in good faith.
I'm
No, you're not.
exactly
You're not. Goodbye.